New this morning, we're learning more about an arrest and a homicide that claimed the life of a Parker High School football coach. DeCorleon Robinson is charged with murder in the case. He's accused of shooting and killing Demetrius Beverly at Lakeshore Ridge Apartments late Wednesday night. Now, investigators say Beverly was in an apartment with a woman when the suspect entered the bedroom and shot Beverly before leaving the apartment. Police arrested Robinson in the apartment parking lot there off Lakeshore. They say Beverly was found shot in a bed and died at the scene. Now, a statement on Parker High School's athletics Facebook page says in part, the school is heartbroken. It says Coach Beverly gave his all to the Thundering Herd and our community.
Late on a summer night in Birmingham, a respected high school coach found himself in the middle of a situation few could have predicted. Known for his leadership on and off the field, he was admired by students, colleagues, and the community at large. But away from the spotlight, his personal life led him into a setting where routine decisions turned into irreversible consequences. Inside a quiet apartment, circumstances aligned that would soon unravel into a deadly encounter. The details that follow were not immediately clear, but what began as an ordinary evening ended with police tape, flashing lights, and questions that quickly spread through the city. A man who had built a reputation as a mentor and guide was suddenly gone, leaving behind shock and speculation about what led to his final moments. What unfolded that night revealed a story no one expected. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Uncovered, where we examine the cases that shake communities and expose what happens behind closed doors. Real stories, real people, real impact. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Demetrius Darnell Beverly, widely known across Birmingham as Coach Meat, was a man whose presence was felt both on and off the athletic field. At the age of 39, he had carved out a place in his community as more than just a coach. He was an alumnus of Parker High School, the very institution where he later returned to teach and mentor. For students, parents, and fellow faculty members, his name carried weight, tied to discipline, guidance, and consistency. Beverly's life was structured around his dual responsibilities: at home, as a husband and father, and at work, as a coach responsible for molding young athletes. His role at Parker High was central not only to the football program, but to the school's broader culture and mentorship. Coaching meant more than training drills. It meant monitoring academics, ensuring discipline, and creating opportunities for players to see futures beyond their neighborhood. Among students, his influence was clear. Many recalled how he gave advice not just on performance but on conduct, emphasizing responsibility. Parents valued him as a figure who held their children accountable while providing the type of encouragement that often kept them engaged in school. Faculty saw him as dependable, someone who contributed to the structure of the school and carried the legacy of Parker as an alumnus who chose to return. The school's athletic department described him in an official statement as a mentor, husband, father, and friend. Their words reflected the role he played beyond wins and losses, a man dedicated to shaping lives through sports and education. How does a figure so respected within a school and community become the subject of such a tragic investigation? The evening of August 13, 2025, began like any other, but by nightfall, circumstances had aligned that would soon be scrutinized by investigators and the public alike. The location of the tragedy was an apartment complex in the 1100 block of Lakeshore Ridge, Birmingham, Alabama. Why was Beverly there that night? According to police reports, he was present in the apartment with a younger woman. Though official statements have not disclosed her identity, multiple accounts have pointed to their connection as being more than casual. Reports framed the relationship as a private affair, hidden from Beverly's public life. The exact timeline of how long this relationship had been ongoing remains unclear, but its existence placed him in a situation that contrasted sharply with his public image as a mentor and family man. At just after 9 p.m., Beverly was inside the apartment. Investigators later confirmed that he was not alone, and his presence in that setting would prove pivotal to the events that unfolded. What private circumstances placed a public mentor in such a compromising situation? The introduction of another figure into this chain of events shifted the course of the night toward tragedy. His name was Keyshawn Robinson, a 24-year-old man with direct ties to the younger woman in the apartment. Robinson's connection to her positioned him as a central figure in understanding the confrontation. At some point during that night, Robinson arrived at the apartment. Accounts describe his entry as direct, and once inside, he made his way to the bedroom. What he encountered in that room has not been fully disclosed, but investigators confirmed that it led to a confrontation. Inside that confined space, an argument escalated to violence. Robinson produced a firearm. The situation moved quickly beyond words and into irreversible action. Beverly was shot inside the bedroom, and when emergency responders arrived, he was declared dead at the scene. The apartment, once quiet, became a crime scene filled with investigators, tape, and evidence markers. Robinson's decision to pull the trigger transformed what may have been a confrontation into a homicide that captured citywide attention. For Beverly, the night ended not in privacy but in headlines, as his role as a husband, father, and mentor was replaced by the label of homicide victim. What exactly did Robinson see when he entered the room that escalated the confrontation into gunfire? When shots rang out inside the Lakeshore Ridge apartment complex on the night of August 13th, 2025, the Birmingham Police Department received an emergency call reporting a possible homicide. Patrol units were immediately dispatched to the 1100 block of Lakeshore Ridge. Upon arrival, officers secured the apartment and confirmed that a man had been fatally shot. The victim was later identified as 39-year-old Demetrius Darnell, Coach Meet Beverly, a respected athletic coach from Parker High School. Officers established a perimeter around the complex, deploying crime scene tape to block off the immediate area. Investigators entered the apartment, documenting the scene and interviewing witnesses. Forensic teams began collecting evidence, including ballistic material, personal items, and electronic devices that might later serve to reconstruct the timeline of events. The Birmingham Police Department released an initial statement to the public, confirming that a man had been killed in a shooting inside a private residence. Within hours, news outlets confirmed the victim's identity, spreading shock across the city. By the next morning, local media carried headlines naming Beverly, with reports highlighting his role as a mentor and coach. At Parker High School, administrators and faculty were notified of Beverly's death. The athletic department issued an official statement, describing the loss as significant for both staff and students. Although the statement outlined his professional contributions, it avoided mention of the circumstances surrounding his death. This created an environment where speculation grew, particularly online, as community members sought answers. In the days that followed, the school became a center for grief and questions. Parents, students, and former athletes shared their memories of Beverly as a coach, but many avoided discussing the private circumstances that placed him in the apartment that night. Authorities maintained a careful stance in public communication, focusing only on the homicide investigation without confirming details about who else was present at the scene. A central figure in the incident, the woman in the apartment with Beverly, remained unnamed in all official documents and public reports. Neither the police nor the media disclosed her identity, leaving a significant gap in the narrative. Without her name or her account of events, speculation mounted about her exact relationship to Beverly and her connection to the man accused of pulling the trigger. This lack of disclosure raises a critical question for viewers. Why has the woman's name remained undisclosed? And what role does she play in piecing together the chain of events that led to a respected coach's death? In the days following the homicide, investigators worked to locate the suspect. Surveillance footage, witness interviews, and digital records were reviewed to track his movements. Police soon identified 24-year-old Keyshawn Robinson as a prime suspect in Beverly's death. Robinson was taken into custody by Birmingham police officers and transported to the Jefferson County Jail. Law enforcement confirmed that he faced 2 charges, murder and unlawful possession of a machine gun conversion device. The second charge was unrelated to the act of homicide itself, but indicated Robinson had in his possession a device capable of illegally modifying a firearm. During his bond hearing, the judge set Robinson's bond at a total of $165,000, $150,000 for the murder charge, and $15,000 for the weapons violation. This decision balanced the severity of the charges with the state's guidelines for bail conditions. Background details on Robinson began to emerge. At 24 years old, Robinson was considerably younger than the victim. Reports indicated limited information about his employment or personal history, but the weapons charge suggested prior involvement with illegal firearm modifications. At the time of his arrest, no extensive criminal history had been released publicly, but investigators made clear that the case against him was supported by physical evidence and witness statements. The unlawful possession charge introduced a separate dimension to the investigation. Authorities had to determine whether Robinson's possession of the conversion device played any direct role in the shooting, or if it was an independent violation discovered during the arrest process. Federal law prohibits such devices, as they can transform semi-automatic weapons into fully automatic firearms. This raised questions about Robinson's activities beyond the night of the shooting. For viewers, the central question becomes, what led a 24-year-old man to possess an illegal firearm device, and how does it connect to this case? Following Robinson's arrest, the case entered the judicial system. A preliminary hearing was scheduled for September 17, 2025, at Jefferson County District Court. The purpose of this hearing is procedural but critical. Prosecutors must present enough evidence to demonstrate that probable cause exists for the charges to proceed toward trial. At this stage, both sides prepare their legal strategies. The prosecution is expected to focus on the evidence collected at the scene, forensic reports, and witness testimony. They will argue that Robinson's actions meet the legal standard for murder, supported by his possession of a firearm and his confrontation with the victim. The weapons charge will be treated as a separate but reinforcing element, painting a picture of a suspect engaged in unlawful conduct. The defense, however, has potential avenues to explore. Robinson's attorneys may argue provocation, claiming that the circumstances of what he witnessed inside the apartment triggered the confrontation. They may attempt to frame the shooting as a crime of passion or as an act lacking premeditation, potentially seeking a lesser charge such as manslaughter. Another possibility is contesting the admissibility of certain evidence, particularly regarding the firearm conversion device, in an attempt to reduce the severity of charges. The outcomes of preliminary hearing are varied. If sufficient evidence is presented, the case will move forward to trial in circuit court. Depending on developments, Robinson could face plea negotiations, where he admits to lesser charges in exchange for reduced sentencing. Additional charges could also emerge if investigators uncover new evidence related to his possession of illegal firearm equipment. Beyond the courtroom, the community watches closely. Beverly's death has already altered the lives of students, athletes, and colleagues who relied on his guidance. Each court appearance brings renewed attention to both the victim's public contributions and the private circumstances surrounding his final moments. The unresolved dynamic of the unnamed woman in the apartment remains a potential focal point for future proceedings. If she testifies, her account could provide crucial clarity about the sequence of events and Robinson's state of mind when he entered the apartment. Without her testimony, significant gaps may remain in the official narrative. For viewers, the pressing legal question is this: will Robinson's defense argue provocation, or will prosecutors focus strictly on the act of murder, leaving little room for reduced charges? The case surrounding Demetrius, Coach Meet, Beverly's death has moved from the chaos of an emergency call to the structured environment of the courtroom. The immediate aftermath revealed the shock of the community and the secrecy surrounding key details. The suspect arrest brought formal charges that extend beyond homicide into weapons violations. Now, with a preliminary hearing on the horizon, the judicial system prepares to determine whether this case will head to trial, end in negotiation, or expand with new charges. At each stage, the unanswered questions remain. The role of the woman in the apartment, the significance of the firearm conversion device, and the strategies that will shape Robinson's defense and the prosecution's case. The outcome will depend not only on the facts already known, but also on the evidence yet to be revealed. When news of Demetrius, Coach Meet, Beverly's death spread, Birmingham lost more than a local coach. Parker High School, where Beverly had been both a student and later a coach, was the first institution to feel the weight of the tragedy. The school released an official statement that carefully acknowledged his contributions while expressing the void left by his sudden absence. Administrators highlighted his leadership in the athletic program, his involvement in guiding young athletes, and his role as a consistent presence in school life. The statement was factual, but its underlying message was clear. A mentor who had long been considered an anchor in the Parker High family was gone. For the student-athletes who interacted with Beverly daily, the loss was more than professional. They were suddenly left without a coach who had shaped their routines, pushed their performance, and influenced their personal discipline. Team practices that once centered around Beverly's instructions now became silent reminders of his absence. For students preparing for athletic scholarships or striving to balance academics and sports, his guidance had been a practical asset. The absence of that guidance posed new challenges. These athletes now had to adjust not only to the structure of a different coaching style, but also to the reality that a central figure in their development was no longer available. Within the Birmingham community, the conversation extended beyond the personal grief of those directly tied to Parker High. Residents discussed the circumstances leading up to the shooting in ways that revealed a deeper examination of choices and their consequences. Some questioned the risks of secrecy in personal lives, especially when hidden relationships intersect with volatile situations. Others pointed to the broader issue of violence in domestic or relational confrontations, noting how quickly disputes could escalate into fatal outcomes. The death of Beverly also presented a difficult contrast for the public to consider. On one hand, his identity as a mentor, husband, and father was widely known and respected. On the other hand, the circumstances of his final moments revealed a private life that placed him in a situation ultimately tied to his death. This duality between the public figure and the hidden personal decisions forced the community to face uncomfortable questions about how individuals are remembered. This brings the viewer to a crucial question. How do communities reconcile the public reputation of a mentor with the private decisions that contributed to his death? Despite the clarity provided by police reports and court documents, several elements of this case remain unresolved. These unanswered questions shape not only the investigation, but also the narrative of how the public perceives the incident. The first and most prominent question revolves around the identity of the woman who was in the apartment with Beverly at the time of the shooting. Her name has not been disclosed by officials, but her role is undeniable. As the only person present aside from the victim and the suspect, her testimony will be central to establishing the sequence of events. What exactly was said? How did the confrontation unfold? Did she attempt to intervene? Until her statements are made public, her part in the story remains unclear, leaving gaps in the timeline of that night. Another unresolved detail is whether Beverly and the accused, Corleon Robinson, had interacted before the fatal evening. Did they know of each other prior to this encounter? Was there an ongoing tension between the two men, or was a confrontation the first time they crossed paths? The answer to this question could shift the case significantly. If prior interactions are established, the shooting could be viewed in the context of an escalating conflict rather than a spontaneous act. The presence of a machine gun conversion device adds further complexity. Robinson was charged not only with murder, but also with unlawful possession of such a device. Investigators will need to determine how it factored into the case. Was it relevant to the weapon used during the shooting, or was it a separate matter discovered during the arrest? Its inclusion raises broader questions about access to illegal firearm modifications and their potential role in violent incidents. Another pressing consideration is whether the situation could have been prevented. Could law enforcement, community intervention, or earlier warnings have altered the outcome? Was there any sign of potential danger in Robinson's behavior or in the circumstances leading up to the confrontation? Such questions are speculative but necessary for understanding how similar tragedies might be avoided in the future. This leads directly to a broader engagement for viewers. What missing details have uncovered which shift public understanding of this case? The death of Demetrius, Coach Meat, Beverly represents more than the sudden loss of a Birmingham high school coach. It illustrates the fragile line between public identity and private reality. The timeline is stark. A respected mentor engaged in a private encounter, an unexpected entry by another individual, and a confrontation that ended with gunfire. In just a matter of moments, a figure once defined by his contributions to students and athletics became the subject of a homicide investigation. The case is now in the hands of the legal system. Robinson faces charges of murder and unlawful possession of a machine gun conversion device. His preliminary hearing, scheduled for September 17, 2025, will serve as a first step in determining how the case progresses. For the community, this hearing will be the start of answers, but it may also expose new questions. Legal proceedings often reveal previously undisclosed details, and the testimony of witnesses, particularly the woman in the apartment, will be central to shaping the court's view. For now, the search for clarity continues. Investigators, attorneys, and community members alike are left to piece together what led to the fatal encounter. Was this simply an unexpected discovery that spiraled into violence, or were deeper tensions at play? The court will decide legal responsibility, but the narrative of how the situation developed will continue to unfold in both public records and community conversations. The case also highlights a broader reflection: the dual nature of public figures. Beverly was celebrated as a coach, a mentor, and a family man, yet his death revealed aspects of his private life that were unknown to many. This duality complicates how he will be remembered, and it underscores the difficulty in reconciling reputation with reality. Communities often face this challenge when prominent individuals are involved in circumstances that contradict their public image. As the trial approaches, one question lingers for viewers. What do you think will be revealed in court that has not yet come to light? The story of Demetrius, Coach Meat, Beverly remains incomplete. The courtroom will provide facts, but the full understanding of how a respected coach's life ended inside a Birmingham apartment will depend on what remains hidden and what is eventually brought into the open. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.